Refuting Bryan Brotersen of the radio call-in show named Pastor's Perspective. The radio studio is located in Costa Mesa, California. Bryan Brotersen is the son-in-law of the late Chuck Smith, founder of the Calvary Chapel movement. Bryan Brotersen claimed several months ago, a few years ago, that the parable of the fig tree in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, verse 32, is not referring to Israel, the return of Israel. He says that if the fig tree equals Israel, because he says it does not equal Israel because, quote, it adds these words, all the trees. That's Luke 21:29. He says that, quote, and all the trees, rather than just the fig tree, this somehow disqualifies the parable from being about Israel as the fig tree. I am raising this question here on YouTube because I didn't receive any satisfaction when I called the call-in show named Pastor's Perspective. In fact, they blocked my phone call, several times, and that just makes me disgusted. It has made me determined to expose Bryan Brotersen and his gang of gospel gangsters. Now here's the parable. Quote, when the branches of the fig tree put forth their leaves, you know that summer is near. Likewise, when Israel comes alive again, you know the end time events will happen soon. But Bryan Brotersen says, well, why does Christ say, look at the fig tree and all the trees? Luke 21:29. Let me explain why Christ says, and all the trees. During winter, the trees lose all their leaves. They appear to be lifeless. The trees do. Likewise, when Israel lost its independence, it was sort of like dead, not very alive. Its spirit was broken. But when Israel regained its freedom, it came alive again, sort of like a tree during springtime. So when Christ speaks about, quote, all the trees, he implies that all the nations regained their freedom and independence at the same time as Israel. Now, is that true? Did a lot of nations in the Middle East regain their sovereignty at the very same time as Israel? Well, yes, that definitely is true. You see, after World War I, the Ottoman Empire was punished because it sided with the Germans, which lost World War I. Anyway, Britain and France won World War I, so they took many of the lands away from Turkey. Britain and France ruled over these lands, these Middle Eastern lands, until the end of World War II. At that time, all the lands in the Middle East regained their freedom just like Israel did at that same time, the end of the 1940s. Now, why didn't Bryan Brotersen know about that stuff? Because he just doesn't care. Anyway, the fig tree coming to life in this passage, Matthew 24, verse 32, Mark 13, verse 28, Luke 21, verse 29. Coming to life in Israel came to life in 1948. Bryan Brotersen, to the contrary, notwithstanding. What Middle Eastern countries besides Israel came back to life in the late 1940s or early 50s? Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Jordan. That should be enough to keep you busy. I mean, you should Google them and see when they got their independence back from Britain and France. Special note of interest. Christ speaks of the branches of the trees putting forth their leaves, quote, then you know that summer is near. Well, it makes more sense to say then that spring is here, not that summer is near. It seems to me that Christ deliberately is focusing on summer. Maybe summer is when the nuclear rapture and the sudden destruction will come. Just what are the end time events that are supposed to happen within one generation? Luke 21, verse 32, after the restoration of Israel. Well, Christ quotes from the beginning of Daniel 7, verse 2. He mentions a great storm, strong winds. And that shows up in Luke 21:25, the roaring seas and the rising tides. The point is that Daniel 7 is pointed to, and the climax is Daniel 7, verse 8. There it says 10 nations in Western Europe. There'll be another nation that comes up among them, and that would be a nation invading the nations of NATO. Then we go back to Luke 21:26, where it says men's hearts will be failing them. Heart attacks. It's not just talking about fainting. For fear, because of what is coming upon the world, namely nuclear attack. This nuclear attack would definitely cause heart attacks, not mere fainting. That's what Christ is talking about. If Christ just says the seas and waves are roaring, that doesn't make too much sense. That doesn't mean that much. But if we look at that as though he's quoting from Daniel 7, verse 2, then that gives us a beachhead that we can use that and then take in the whole chapter, Daniel 7. And then we go to 7, verse 8. That's the action verse. This week that is coming up includes June 26th, the anniversary that will live in infamy. The anniversary of the Supreme Court legalizing gay marriage in 2015. I am thinking that because Pentecost is real late this year, I mean Jewish Pentecost, that Jewish Pentecost and June 26th are just 13 days apart. And I'm thinking that my idea about Pentecost being the time could come true. I expected it back on June 19th, the Russian attack. It did not happen, but it's only 2 weeks later. That's coming up this week. What I'm trying to say is it might still come this year at this time. I'm concerned about June 26th. If it does come, that's God's way of putting a curse, putting a stain, marking June 26th, so that everyone can see God's displeasure with the legalization of gay marriage. I may not have had the recorder on the last few minutes, so I'm going to have to go over what I just said, just in case it did not record. I was saying that June 26th is the anniversary of the Supreme Court legalizing gay marriage, and because it's so close to Pentecost, Jewish Pentecost, this year, which was June 13th. I'm thinking that the nuclear war may come on June 26th, just 13 days later, and of 13 days after Pentecost. I have a video that explains why Pentecost is very likely. Please look that up. I'll summarize it real quick. There are 3 rituals in Yom Kippur, that's Leviticus 16, and there are 3 feast times in Deuteronomy 16:16, the big 3. And they both go together, the 3 and the 3, and that's all I can say right now. And so in the time that's left, like I always say, please go out and buy a plastic trash can, fill it up 2/3 with water, because even if you don't have any food, as long as you have water, you'll be able to survive if you're even the least bit overweight. A lot of Americans are 100 pounds overweight. That means they can live 100 days. They lose 1 pound a day. And they won't be starving themselves, because they'll be eating the fat that's stored on their body. And after 100 days, well, they'll be able to get some food, not just their body fat, but you need the water. And one last thing, 5 months is how long Russia will rule the world. Christ said that once the tribulation starts, I will come quickly. And so that means that it's got to be a short trib. And that's why I say when I came across 5 months in Revelation 9, verse 5 and 10, I realized that was it. That is the jackpot. What do you call it? The that is the holy grail, so to speak. The length of the trib. It's very important to know that much. It's not 7 years, which is a total, fiasco. Much too long. Christ said, I will come quickly. That's Revelation 3, verse 11. Revelation 22, verse 7, verse 12, and verse 20.